And of course, we're taking a look at the commodity markets where we've got commodity prices falling today as participants, of course, turn pessimistic over what is happening in Europe right now. Run us through the kind of sentiment on the ground on that end.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, what's happening at the moment is all the sentiment around Europe and the kind of sovereign debt crisis in Europe is really helping to power these markets at the moment. So at the moment, of course, we're turning more negative. People are starting to worry about whether there really will be a settlement at the weekend to to help get out of this crisis. So at the moment everything is selling off, but this is kind of coming against the background of relatively decent fundamentals, I think, for the commodities. So it is very much about sentiment at this point rather than those underlying fundamentals.
Let's of course take a look at that gold price, because falling back, marking its fourth consecutive decline, moving more closely in tandem right now with the stock market than at any time in the last 6 months. And this while we've got markets, as you say, still riddled with uncertainty over the outcome of what's going to be unfolding in the EU. Are you surprised by the break the yellow metals made from its traditional safe haven appeal?
Well, I think it's increasingly the case that gold has been moving as kind of part of portfolio flows, really, rather than safe haven flows. So, of course, people are tending to increase the amount of gold they have in their portfolio. But when you're seeing widespread sell-offs through equities, gold is tending to go down in sympathy with that. So it doesn't really surprise me, and I think that could remain the case in the weeks and months ahead.
Although gold has barely gained in price, so far this month, investors have they necessarily lost faith in its safe haven qualities?
No, I think that's right. I mean, at the moment, the way we see gold is the kind of technical picture is quite weak. So the kind of bounce from the lows was kind of relatively small, and as soon as sentiment turns, then it tends to sell off fairly significantly. So I think we're still in that phase where technicals are weak and suggesting we're going to go lower. On the other hand, the fundamentals are actually pretty good, I'd say, overall. So we saw a kind of upturn in terms of a lot of the physical premiums, both in terms of Switzerland and Asia. So in Hong Kong, for example, premiums were pretty high into last week, and then they softened a little bit at the start of this week, but still quite good. So we still see good physical demand from India, China, these kind of countries, and Asia more generally.
So we were trading just above that 1,600 mark at this stage of the game. I mean, what kind of trading forecast have you put on that yellow metal price?
Well, I think in the short term it could pull back to maybe 1,500, those kind of levels. But I mean, over the medium and long term, we still remain very bullish on gold, and I think any sharp dips should look to should be seen as buying opportunities from a long-term perspective.
Let's stack that up against your perspective on the platinum price right now, because in line with other industrial raw materials, that price are trading significantly lower today as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think platinum is a very good long-run story from a lot of perspectives. So, on the one hand, margins are being squeezed by rising labour costs, of course, and rising electricity prices. Seckam, of course, some doubts recently about whether they're going to be able to bring on their major power plant, which is due on in the next year or two. So that will, of course, create a lot of problems for platinum supply. In terms of the demand side, the auto sector has held up pretty well in recent months, so we saw some good numbers out of the US. China's also not too bad. Germany also doing well, so the demand side is pretty good, and a lot of kind of structural change as well taking place for platinum. So environmental legislation is mandating heavier use of catalysts in the truck sector, and new use of catalysts in the kind of off-road market for these off-road vehicles. So actually, the fundamental story, I think, for platinum is pretty robust, but we can't ignore the kind of wider sentiment for now.
So bottom line, you're looking for demand for platinum expected to continue to recover as we progress through the remainder of this year, but then to be met by sluggish increase in supply.
Well, I think the thing for now is, you know, platinum's being buffeted by the same kind of factors as everything else. So, you know, when there's a big panic about Europe, everything's tending to sell off. So, I think for the next couple of weeks, you know, things are going to be pretty volatile and sideways for platinum and other markets. But on the kind of 6-month view, 1-year view, I think the fundamentals will come back, become much more important. And things like platinum, copper, these kind of markets, and gold as well, you know, we think they will bounce back pretty strongly once, you know, once confidence returns.